Hello, everyone, and welcome back. It's the Full 40, brought to you by Homefield Apparel and part of the Nova Insider Network. I've fucking just forgot. The Full 40 with Chris, Willie, and Trevor. I'm a mess. I'm already a mess.
Chris turned 37 and his memory disappeared into the ether, and now he's having trouble with his motor skills.
This is what we call early onset dementia.
Yo, dementia runs in my family.
Oh, geez, I'm sorry.
It's all right. No, it's fine. I don't care. It's fine. My 96-year-old grandma's in a home. It's fine.
I struck a nerve, guys. Where just Brian cut this.
It's so good. All right, we're already a mess. We haven't gotten 1 minute into this podcast. We got a lot to cover today, though. So first of all, you're going to get to see a Homefield ad cut by Trevor. So that's going to be wonderful. That's going to come later, which is, I know, the moment everyone's waiting for. But in addition to that, we're going to cover the week that was, talk a little bit about our thoughts around Nova's non-conference schedule. And then right around the top of the hour, right around 10, we'll be joined by the one and only John Fanta, who needs basically no introduction because he's just everywhere. So if you watch college basketball, you know who John Fanta is. So we're honored to have him on for like the 4th or 5th season running. And he's coming on at 10 o'clock to talk all types of Big East hoops. We're going to ask him some specific questions about Nova. We're going to ask him some specific questions about Nova, and we'll go from there. So a busy week, a 1-point overtime loss at K-State. And then a 9-point win versus UCLA at the Wells Fargo Center on Saturday evening. Guys, I mean, what's your obviously it's been a crazy couple weeks, a lot of chatter around a lot of different topics, but what is your prevailing thought coming as we sit here today about Villanova, the out of conference schedule, etc.? I'll go to Willie first.
Meat on the bone. We left too much meat on the bone. I look back and I think about it comparing to last year, where last year I think we just got beat across the board by teams. We should have beat Oregon, because they were down to 4 people playing. But I just look at the games that we had. Drexel was there's no excuse for Drexel. There's nothing for Drexel. I think St. Joe's actually just kind of beat us. I'm fine with that. They kind of just straight up beat us. I'll give us a mulligan on Penn for first time seeing the zone, dealing whatever, even though we probably should have just beat Penn. And then Kansas State, we just didn't execute down the stretch, and I think we should have had it. So I sit back, I'm looking at this, and all right, we're 7-4, and I'm really we should be 9-2, and we shouldn't have 2 bad losses on our record. And I think we're still with a decent Big East, and we're going to talk about this as we go down the path. With a decent Big East season, we're still a tournament team. But those 2 losses that we have are the difference from us being a top 6 seed and a top 10 seed. And that's really where the big difference is. Just having those bad losses on our record. And then, maybe we go through the non-conf or the Big East play and we beat UConn twice. We beat Creighton twice. We beat Marquette. We'd do amazing and it doesn't matter. That's not going to happen. Very unlikely to impossible. So I don't know. I just look at it and we left too much meat on the bone. That's just the thing I come away with. And then I share this in the chat with you all. Shooting. And who are we shooting? I don't think we're a great team shooting, but I share this in the chat. We are shooting 28% on uncontested jumpers. And realistically, every single one of those is a 3-pointer. We're not taking very many uncontested mid-range jumpers. We're shooting 28% on that. I don't even know how that's possible from a basketball standpoint. That shouldn't be possible. So you'd imagine there's some progress, regression to the mean. I don't know what the term is for it, whatever. But you imagine that would happen. But it's stuff like that where there's just meat on the bone. I'm glad we have strong wings. We have strong wins. It's very clearly we can see it there. But this is a Jekyll and Hyde team, and I'm hoping to see just some consistency in a positive direction come Big East play.
Yeah, I to carry off Willie's point, this is kind of the opposite of what we've been accustomed to the last few years in terms of shooting and defense. Like normally we come in and we're a pretty good offensive team and it's the defense that kind of has to gel. But this season especially, we're a really strong defensive team and we cannot shoot to save our lives. We definitely left a lot to be desired on the out of conference. If you figure if you beat Penn, you don't even end up playing Drexel. I agree with Willie. We just got beat by St. Joe's, and they're a really good team. They beat Princeton the other day. They're set up nicely to make a run in the A10. But if you beat Penn, you don't even play Drexel. Maybe you lose to LaSalle.
Yeah.
But that's just something that, and LaSalle's a good team this year too, or better than they've been. But so that's just something that kind of look back and could have changed the entire trajectory of the season. Like I said, the wins we have are good wins. Memphis just picked up a big win the other night. UNC's rolling. Beating Mick Cronin's always good. Kansas State. Start your action with 8 seconds on the clock left. I beg you. Next time, TJ. Everybody talked about it on Twitter ad nauseum. Like, would have loved to maybe get somebody else a look to try to win that game in regulation. You look at the tape there, you can find 2 points here and there, but that broken play that we were probably like an extended finger away from poking that ball into the backcourt and running out with a layup instead of Kansas State getting an alley-oop to bring it within 2 and then eventually hit the game winner. So that's just basketball, I guess. You really want Penn and Drexel back, Penn especially, so you don't even have to risk losing to Drexel. But I think this sets us up to having to go. I think we talked about it and lined it up. Like you have to win 10 or 11, maybe 12 games in the Big East to be totally secure with where you are before the Big East tournament.
Yeah. So like it kind of parlays into what Willie said, but it's like wholly unsatisfying. Like in a weird way, if this season had just gotten off to like a total crash and burn, like we lose those games that we lost and lose to UNC and then Arkansas or something like that, you kind of say, okay, this is just going to be a disaster. We'll see it out, obviously, because we always do, but like we'll see it out. But this is going to be a clusterfuck, and we can comfortably call for some type of change at the end of the season to right the ship going forward. And on the other side of it, like if you win those 2 other games that Willie you were talking about, you're 9-2, and you're feeling like I have to go 500 in a decent Big East play to comfortably make the tournament, which would be an easy expectation after being 9-2. And you're like, okay, that's good. And then, and also from 9-2, you feel, to your point, Willie, you feel like you can go out and maybe get 12-8, 13-7, and actually wind up with like a 4 seed, a 5 seed, and actually make some noise, and then feel like, okay, Villanova might be, quote unquote, back. Right now, this is just like I said this in the group chat earlier, but it's like it feels like we're like a 500 NFL NBA team that makes the playoffs but doesn't get a high draft pick. Like it just feels like very like unsatisfying. Now, that being said, I give the team some credit because clearly the talent's there to beat some good teams, and the defense on this team does travel. And we talked about this last week, but this defense and rebounding. I know they're working on offense in practice. I'm not like stupid enough to think that they don't work on it, right? Like, but like it's frustrating to keep hearing that message because it's like you guys got that part, right? Like some teams talk about, hey, we need to turn defense into offense, right? This team takes bad offense and turns it into bad defense, right? Like it's literally like turning the ball over, clanking a shot with, after 5-10 seconds have expired on the shot clock on like even an uncontested 3, but like mostly like sometimes like, semi-contested 3, to like throwing an absolute fastball off the backboard on a drive so that you create a run out the other direction, which is unreal. That's amazing. Everything is just like it feels like you could make the argument that we're inches away from being like considered right with Creighton, maybe not UConn and Marquette, but right with Creighton at that like tier 1B of the
that's how we felt when we left the Bahamas. We're like,
Yeah.
we're right there with Creighton, maybe above Creighton.
right.
And then we just proved ourselves wrong. But yeah.
And Willie, even the unsatisfying part like goes to like the Maryland game, the Memphis game. Like you kind of like look back on those games now, and you're like, well, shit, guys, like we could have been Ken Pom 22, and like I know it seems like silly, but like we could have been like Ken Pom 22 if we just beat the brakes off those teams like we were. We're up 30 in both of those games. Like why couldn't we end up 25, up 30? Like I know again, like at the time when we complained about it, it seemed ridiculous. And our Nova Insider brethren, Chris Notaro, called us out about it. Basically subtweeted us on our on his episode. But like you do that, even that, right? You even feel better about your resume right now because your advanced metrics look better. It's all of it is just to say that like we left way too much out there for the taking in the out of conference schedule, and now we're in a position where, in kind of like a topsy-turvy Big East, you need to perform well. You need to pick up some wins against some really high-end teams, and you need to avoid losses to really bad teams.
Yep.
And so it's just like it's just going to be every game is going to have its own like nightmare fuel scenario. Like our first game is on the 20th versus Creighton. And at Creighton. And that's nightmare fuel because every time we go there early in the season, we get the doors blown off of us. Then our next game 3 days later is at DePaul, which should be like, it should be an easy win.
But we lost there last year.
But we lost there last year. And oh, by the way, they're so bad this year that if you lose there this year, you're fucked. That would be easily the worst loss that we've had.
A loss to DePaul means we have like it's. I think like people have to look at it like it's so like it's 2 points topsy turvy. For every bad loss that we have, you have to make it up with an elite win. So like you lose to DePaul, you got to win at Stores. Like, and that's asking way too much right there. Like I'm chalking that up to a loss. Even though we played UConn well on the road last year, like it's just like we put ourselves not behind the 8 ball because once again like. We win 11 games, you go around 500, we're probably still pretty safely like a top 9, 10 seed. But it's unsatisfying for what this team could be, especially seeing what we did during the Bahamas. Like seeing that in Atlantis, you're like, I think people are like, is that a flash in the pan? And I was just, and like, I think it's tough to call 3 games in a row in that situation a flash in the pan. Like, that's what they showed what the ceiling is. Like maybe it's a flash in the pan of what the ceiling is, but like that's who this team could be. Like they did that, they showed that. So it's now the expectations have changed. Like to Chris, your point earlier, like we're no longer dealing with the fact that like we lost to Penn and then cool we beat Texas Tech, we lose to UNC, we lose whatever, and it's a cluster. It's now like okay, well we know that we can be at least a top 20 team in talent. Like we know that there should be a puncher's chance at a Sweet 16 with this team. Like that's what it should be at a peak. And we're dealing with a situation where now we're like, the way to describe it is to be favored to get to a Sweet 16, we probably have to win like at UConn and at Marquette. Like we have to split with UConn, Marquette, and Creighton to be in a position to be a top 5 seed or top 6 seed where you're favored or could be favored to go to a Sweet 16 depending on matchups. And I'm sitting here talking about Sweet 16 and we're 7-4, which like we need to like, there's just like so many more things that we have to do to raise the floor of this team because we've seen the bottom. Well, at least I think we've seen the bottom. I hope we've seen the bottom. But there's so many more things that we need to do to raise the floor of this team and like getting creative offensively when it is a 4-minute stretch when it's a 3-minute stretch without scoring is something that we need to do. It's a testament to our defense that we haven't been blown out of these games when I haven't done the math on it, but like out of the 11 games, I would venture to say 7 of them, we've had a 4+ minute scoring drought and like 3 or 4 of them being like 6 to 7, 8 minutes. So yeah.
I just keep going back to the fact that if we end up as an 8-9 seed, it's just like, okay, maybe you win the first game, and then you're playing Houston, you're playing Arizona, you're playing Purdue, like
Yeah, and well, going off of that, I think we're definitely one of those teams that one seed wouldn't want to see.
Yeah.
Which great, good for them. This is like we would be their Wisconsin from 2017, but that's assuming we're playing our best basketball at the end of the year.
right.
I think that if we trap ourselves and get stuck around that same line, if we don't get those marquee wins in Big East, then it's not going to be a great situation to try to get to a second weekend in March. But I don't know. It's so far out. I don't even know. I don't want to totally focus on that. But it's definitely like we talked about it. We kind of know the roadmap here.
Yeah. I guess one thing that we hadn't talked about yet is Justin Moore. The question is kind of like, what is his timetable to return? I think we were talking in the group chat that saying like, hey, like it might not be the worst thing, as odd as that sounds. Like last year you could chalk up the whole season not having Justin Moore, right? Like you could make that excuse for everybody, right?
We beat UCLA without him, and we should have beat Kansas State without him. Like,
yes.
I'm proud of us for beating how we handled UCLA, which like UCLA is like fine, but like we were missing our in theory best player, and we did it without him. Like,
yeah, right. And it didn't feel any like we were down for a little bit in that first half because we couldn't shoot the ball like to save our fucking life. But at no point in that game did I think to myself, with just the players that we had, like I never said to myself, "Oh, we need Justin to get over the hump with this team."
No,
I very clearly felt like we were the better team on that floor,
which was reassuring too. Like I felt really good about that.
Right,
which speaks to the ceiling of this team.
right. You get Justin Moore back, and all of a sudden things go well. Now, do I think that in a weird way, do the lineups kind of work a little bit easier? Well, not when Neptune's playing Arch in the middle of that first half, but like
thunderous applause from the.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
From the no, I'm dead serious. It was very loud cheering the second he came in.
I wanted him to hit that three so badly.
We were begging for it. No, he. I would rather have seen the Nana first half minutes. Who he had some really solid possessions in the second half. But Chris dribbled the ball and tried not to turn it over. The shot didn't look great, but that's like probably his fourth attempt of the season. Like,
I think it was his first.
I thought the Nana defensive play where he stood
block.
his ground and then got that block I think we had started to take control of the game, but I feel like that actually was that was like that defensive possession was like an early dagger, so to speak.
So if you were at Wells Fargo and at Xfinity before the game and saw me, you probably heard me say this is going to be the Nana and Joku coming out game. And I was not entirely serious about that, but I took full credit after the fact. Every game that he's played like legitimate minutes in, it feels like he gets one of those insane blocks that just changes the entire momentum of the next 5 minutes. We saw it against UNC back-to-back possessions. We saw it again last Saturday night when we were kind of had them on the ropes trying to pull away, and that was huge. So I was really and then he got buried on the other end on his layup or dunk attempt, but I think we ended up maintaining possession, getting a 3 out of that. But it was encouraging to see that he hasn't played a ton, but you can still throw him out there in high leverage situations, and he's not going to totally lose it for you or anything like that. He made good plays. Playing him with Lance Ware is interesting too. You get that big lineup,
jumbo package.
I think Hausen was on the floor at that time for some much needed shooting and spacing. But other than Brendan, like the next smallest guy was Longino, who's 6'5", Burton at 6'7" or 6'8", whatever he is, and then it was the big guys. Yeah, so it's fun that we can go big, I guess, for how not big we are, and part of that is you're playing 2 7-footers. But
real quick, Arch, that was Arch's first shot attempt of the year, of which Arch up till that point, I don't think fouls count in trillions. So Arch had a 15 trillion at that moment, and Arch has literally that shot attempt was the first non-foul or turnover that Arch did all season. So he's had no rebounds, no assists, no steals, no blocks, and then
to be fair, not much opportunity. But
no, there's not much opportunity.
He's playing like 10 minutes.
Yeah, I just think it's so interesting. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah.
That's super interesting.
No, everybody wanted that ball to go in.
But yeah, I'm not like blaming him. I just think it's an interesting. I wanted to see if he could get like an 89 trillion at this stage. Just keep doing what you're doing. I think what's something I wanted to call out, and I said this on Twitter, and I'm still like, we did a little bit. Individual players did a bit better job of it. It's like cutting off the ball when we get into the lane. We're stagnant, and then Dixon or what's Justin all season of just like trying to bully their way in and like pivoting and trying to bully their way in instead of like even before they get to the point where they pick up the ball, but having people cut and dive and move all around, that really didn't happen. There was one moment during the game where we were like, I don't know what got into us. We had beautiful ball movement where there was people cutting off the ball, people were moving, and it was going quick. It got to the middle of the zone, got kicked out to, I want to say, Hart or Longino for a 3, and they missed it. But it was just a moment of ball movement. I was like, where the hell has this been? It was so crisp. And I was like, that's what we need to be doing. And we just like stay stagnant, like outside of like, or we stay stagnant and then we don't go to the rim hard, which is a thing. Like we're getting blocked at the rim. We're actually like, I'll give you the numbers right now. We're actually shooting at the rim, we rate as poor. We are shooting 51% at the rim, and 52% at the rim and 51% on layups. We already know we're missing layups at the rim, but we're also just getting blocked like a decent amount, which is like very frustrating because we're going up soft. I want to give Burton a shout out. He got to the line a lot, which is another common thread. When we get to the line, we win. Like that just seems to be what we need to be doing. Like if the jump shots are going, just go hard to the rim and get fouled. And it's counterintuitive because it goes against how we've played for the last 10 years, but we're jump stopping and then we're pivoting and then we're not athletic enough to go through people or go over people. And people are just like, if they don't call the foul, then we're kind of just like shooting a stupid shot. Burton did a good job of getting to the line, being aggressive, using his athleticism and like forcing fouls to be called. And then like, I think made 10 out of 13 or 10 out of 12 free throws, whatever it was, or 12 out of 13, which was really good. I mean, he scored 18 points. He only made 3 baskets, but he like was living at the line because he was cutting to the basket and cutting hard. And that's what we need more of, is that to one, get to the line, because it's very clear we win. When we get to the line, we win. And then 2, just like to break up the offensive monotony when we can't get a jump shot going, because we can't keep going back to the pass, shoot a 3 with 10 seconds left on the clock, or pass. We just keep passing and then we throw up something stupid there.
Am I reading this right? That per KenPom, 100 possessions, we get blocked 15.6% of those possessions?
We get blocked a lot.
Good for 357th in the country?
Yes, we get blocked so much.
Okay, because I said on Twitter the other day, I was like, it feels like we get blocked a lot.
That's correct.
We do.
We also have played some really good defensive centers this season. You got Baycott. Memphis has a couple tall dudes. UCLA has 2 7-footers.
Omari Williams
has their guy.
Yeah, Williams from Drexel. Williams from Drexel killed us.
Yeah, he had like 3 or 4 blocks.
Good news is there's nobody really tall or good at blocking the ball in the Big East. That's good.
Well, all the trouble that Dixon has with Kalkbrenner, it's just and Burton, that's just 4 years of Richmond basketball, man. Not much else to it.
Nick Cronin's such a fucking
he's just an
fuck.
angry, saddled man.
You're an angry elf.
South Pole elf. Yeah. Yeah, he was not. That was very entertaining to watch too. I don't think anybody likes him.
No. He's like the worst version of Danny Hurley and Kevin Willard mixed together.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Oh, I just want to point out Jordan Longino. And if we're going to if we're okay giving awards again.
Yeah.
I'm going to actually give – I don't have necessarily the stats to back it up, but I don't care. Just from looking at it, I'm going to give Jordan Longino my alpha dog of the week.
Completely.
He passed the eye test, yeah.
He passed it.
He had a great game against Kansas State. Say whatever about the finish. That was a mix of just situational awareness, and the coaches probably should have said, hey, you got 4 dribbles and you got to put something up. And whatever reason, it didn't happen. But he was cooking in overtime. He was probably so gassed. That's why he went short on one of those free throws. But he really carried the load that Justin left behind.
In a situation where we needed a leader, like someone to step up, and Eric was fine. Like I have nothing against Eric. He's been fine. But like you needed a leader. You needed someone to step up. Like Jordan did it. Like in both games. Yeah, that he is a quarterback. That's in his DNA. But he did it. He stepped up. Like he took big shots down the stretch versus Kansas. He took and made big shots versus UCLA. So like, yeah, I think it just makes sense. Shout out to him for the alpha dog. Like, just like not even just in the moment, but like the stepping up to the moment is almost more what I'm more proud of than like the completion of it. Like it's the fact that there was a vacuum and we had 2 leaders on this team. And like, now I kind of look at him like, I don't know, Jordan might be number 3. And like, we'll see what happens with like when Justin comes back and Jordan can't start. But like, it is what it is. Like, I'm almost like asking the question, do you start Jordan?
Yeah.
When Justin's back?
Maybe.
And you put Mark and Hart.
My view is yes.
I'm definitely at the team of finishing with Jordan. I mean, you finish who's playing better, but like typically.
I'm on the game of putting Mark as the 6th man right now. I was very much on team Mark has to start. But when Moore comes back, I think you start Jordan. Did I cut out?
No. Yeah. You sound fine to me.
Oh, okay, good. It's like a little bit shifty for me at the moment.
Well, even like you do have a couple games to.
Go ahead, Trevor.
You do get a couple games if Justin's coming back. Like you might want to lean him back in, kind of, instead of just like, oh yeah, Justin's starting again. Like so, you do get some opportunity to probably have Justin coming off the bench for 1 or 2. So it's not like an immediate. Also, we have no idea on the timeline and everything like that. So, but yeah, Jordan picked up the leadership role and the responsibility almost that when it was left on up to whoever in Kansas. Eric continues to be solid and awesome. We love Eric, but Jordan did what we all kind of had heard he was going to be doing. And that's all we can really ask for right now.
I view, and I think we're about to be joined by Fanta, but I view it as Justin either plays versus Creighton, or he doesn't play until Xavier. Like you don't play him away at DePaul if he's not good. If he's not good to go for Creighton, just hold him out for the.
It's like 3 days later. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, then you play him on the 3rd. And I think that's what we're talking about time-wise. I don't think we're talking about that long of a timetable. All right. We got a 30-second ad, and then we'll be live with John.
Today's episode of the Full 40 is brought to you by Homefield Apparel. Homefield produces some of the best quality vintage collegiate apparel on the market. You won't find better game day gear anywhere else. Homefield has the ultimate collection of old school logos and looks with the best quality around. Shop t-shirts, crew necks, hoodies, bomber jackets, and more at homefieldapparel.com. Don't forget to use code NOVAINSIDER for 15% off your first purchase. That's code NOVAINSIDER at homefieldapparel.com.
All right, we are back, and live with us is John Fanta. John, you need no introduction, but good to see you. Thank you for joining us.
It's great to be with you guys. Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome. Love the Full 40. I've always loved what you guys are doing, and just seeing it grow is really cool. So appreciate you guys having me on this Monday night. It's good to be with you.
Same to you. So, John, we're going to dive right in because we know –
I have an important question for John first off. This is most important. John, how you feel about your Browns? I mean, Joe Flacco's running it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. He has been – I finally finally, in the 28th year of life, have found a quarterback.
A nice 39-year-old man.
It took 28 years to find a 39-year-old guy to play the quarterback position. This is the smoothest I've seen a quarterback play for the Cleveland Browns. And for those who think that I'm kidding, I'm not. I'm not kidding at all. I'm being completely serious. Like, I have never seen someone smoothly run an offense. They have driven right down the field back-to-back weeks on the opening drive. Flacco's smooth. The Browns have always had an offensive line, so they're going to give him time to throw. And David Bell had never had a touchdown reception. He's in the second year of his career. In Flacco's second game, he delivers to David Bell, runs it all the way into the end zone on that dramatic 4th and 3. Flacco became, guys, the first Browns quarterback since Brian Stipe in 1980. In 1980 to throw for 3 touchdowns of over 30 yards in the same game. 43 years it had taken for a quarterback to have what Jalen Hurts and Pat Mahomes have called basically every Sunday.
Yep. Things are looking up in Cleveland.
Yeah, 8-5. I feel good. 8-5. I feel good right now. My season is going a lot like Villanova's.
Yeah.
I was going to say I'd rather be 7-4, but you know.
True. Very true.
That's a great cut, John. So I guess we'll go right into that then. Villanova, 7-4, really up and down roller coaster. We've been calling it Space Mountain here on the podcast because not only is it a roller coaster, but we're totally in the dark as to what's going to happen next. So I guess what's your takeaways from Villanova? Because Villanova's out of conference schedule is wrapped up, at least for now. So I guess what's your takeaway?
Well, my takeaway is that this is a team that, because of the tempo that they play and the style that they play, they could beat anybody. They could also lose to a lot of teams. So now that non-conference is wrapped up, overall, if the NCAA tournament started today, and I could say this through some people that I've talked to in the last 48 hours, Villanova would be in the field. They would be in the field.
Yep.
Probably as like a 10 seed, but they would be in the field. And the reason why is because, unlike a lot of teams, they collected quality wins. And this time of year, the committee's going to reward you for collecting quality wins. 2-0 against Quadrant 1. I mean, that to me says it all. And look, has this been topsy-turvy? Without question. You can't go 0-3 in the Big Five. I don't care what the circumstances are. That was unacceptable, inexcusable. Yep. Anybody from Villanova's side of things would tell you that. But, you also can't get into the territory of sky is falling, this is dead, changes, drastic shifts. Nothing is going to drastically shift in season other than these guys figuring out how they're going to play with each other game in and game out. That's the only thing that's going to shift. Mm-hmm. If you want to complain about late game execution and about coaching and all that, people have complaints about everything. I'm not telling you what you should or shouldn't complain about. And your standard should be high. The roster costs $3 million. Okay? So you shouldn't be 7-4. You should be 9-2. But the fact of the matter is this. You're not. You are what your record says. And here's the thing. Everybody's probably looking at the Creighton game saying, oh boy, they're probably starting conference play with an L. I twist it because last year they went to Omaha, and remember that game?
Yep.
They should have won that game.
Mm-hmm.
My point is they're going to be in pretty much every game they play because of how they play.
Yep.
And I do think there was value to this past week because they learned that they cannot over-rely on Justin Moore. These other guys have to be themselves. They've got to play their roles. And I thought role definition got a little bit better for this team in the past week.
Agreed. we were just talking a little bit about the week that was, and it did feel like we said, like, last year, Justin Moore not being with the team felt like, okay, that was, you could just chalk up the whole season almost to that. And this year, Justin Moore not being with the team feels a little bit like, hey, this might actually be a little bit of a blessing in disguise, provided that Justin is able to come back relatively soon, because now other guys have to step up. Jordan Longino's been a revelation for the Wildcats, and it's been quite the showing for him, especially over the course of the last week. John, let me ask you a question here. So at 7-4, and we kind of came to a similar conclusion on NCAA tournament hopes. We kind of feel like you get to 18, 19 wins overall, and you're probably feeling pretty decent about your chances on Selection Sunday to get into the field. But let's just say this doesn't go that way. Let's just say Villanova loses at DePaul. Yeah. And ends up
a pretty picture here, Chris.
Yeah, ends up with like a 9-11 record in conference play, and misses the tournament with this roster for a second straight season. You said before, and we're fully on board with this. Villanova's not going to make any changes midseason. Most schools don't, and Villanova is certainly not going to buck the trend in that regard. Do you think that Villanova would potentially make a change at the end of the season if it didn't work out? If it worked out this latter way that I just said?
Well, if they don't make the NCAA tournament, they're either going to make one big change or they're going to make several little to moderate changes.
Yeah.
I would think it's the latter. Okay. Because if you let go of, if you make a coaching, first off, I think this team's going to make the NCAA tournament. I really do believe that. Like I thought that after they lost to Kansas State, because I really did think going in the UCLA game, there was just everything aligned for desperation in that game against a younger UCLA team. And you just felt like they were going to find a way to win that game. And they did. But guys, yeah, the standard here is high because you were listed as a blue blood, and you are a blue blood, and you might not be in Tier A. You're not with Kentucky, Duke, Kansas, Carolina, but you're in the class. If we're going to identify name brands in this sport, you're absolutely in the top 12. I'll put you in the top 12, maybe top 10. I put you in the top 10 in my rankings of name brand. So when you have that recognition, yeah, you missed the NCAA tournament for the first time in 11 years last season. I'll give you one pass. 2 passes means change has to happen. Mm-hmm. So how that change gets made is another thing. But I also think there's an interesting conundrum right now. And the interesting conundrum to me is that it still feels like Jay Wright's program, and it doesn't fully feel like Kyle Neptune's program. And I say that not insulting any one thing. I think it's just the power of transition. And I think it's the impact of transition. And that when you make a transition, certain guys, it takes them time to see you as the head coach. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that. I thought Atlantis was going to be that. I really did. Didn't it feel like Atlantis was the moment where now this is Kyle Neptune's moment?
Yes.
Well, I think we learned that just because you have one moment doesn't mean you collect 10. That's what speaks to Coach Wright's greatness, is that he sustained at an unbelievable level, going 263 and 53 over a 9-year span. Nobody's ever going to do that with a program anywhere, not in a power conference. But that's what they're battling. I think, at least that's what I think they're battling. Like, I'm not in their facility every single day. Only they know. But this is just my observation. My observation is that you're trying to run a Fortune 500 company the same exact way without the leader of it. And it's really hard to do it the same way when the person who legitimately knows every formulaic method to do that is not in that chair every time you step out on the floor to play a game. If you had a substitute teacher for 3 straight months, there's a reason why they're a sub.
Right.
It's time for Kyle Neptune to fully put away the criticism. Put away this isn't me criticizing him. This is me saying to Coach Neptune, this is me saying to those Villanova players, throw out all the stuff. Throw out all the distractions. Put away the phone. Put away everything on the outside. Focus on yourself. Don't listen to anybody. Don't look at it as a pressure situation. Stop caring what people think about you. Stop caring about reputation. Just coach your team.
Yeah.
Kyle Neptune went to Fordham with zero expectations, and he put that program on the map. Villanova's the exact opposite. But you've got to go out and say, you know what? At the end of the day, I've got top 15 talent in America. Let's let this loose and let's go right now.
I'm ready to run through the fucking wall. I'm good. Let's go, John. Where's Joe Flacco? I'm on your page.
That's how I see it. And I do think that they could play faster at times. I'm not saying all the time, but when you have this much scoring talent, you should be able to accelerate what you do from time to time.
Yeah, we keep. I'd like to see us be more opportunistic, especially off missed defensive rebounds, and especially when you have a Mark Armstrong, a Tyler Burton, who these people who thrive in transition, and we're just not putting them always in that position to win. To your point, John, and what we've all said, opportunistically running. We started to do that. There was a point where we were talking on the pod where I think we finally broke the top 300 in tempo, and I was like, "Oh, maybe something's changing." It's reverted back, and we're sitting here in the same situation where the tempo that we play when we're not shooting well gives other teams a chance to stay with us.
Yeah, that's exactly it. When you're so reliant on 3-point shots, Willie, it's a terrific point. When you're so reliant on 3-point shooting and those shots aren't falling and you're playing at one of the slowest tempos in college basketball, that's not a formula to win games. I mean, or let me go a step further. It's not a formula for the talent you have to serve as an advantage.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You're playing a game that a lot of people would be comfortable playing in. So, look, it can be deadly. It could be the other way around. And guess who learned that the hard way? Memphis.
Yep.
Memphis learned if you're not shot making and they come out and do that, you're done. And Villanova's going to do that to a couple of teams in the Big East. They're going to come out. They're going to hit 5 of their first 6 shots, and the game is over at the under 16. It just is. Because when you play that tempo and you're up by 10 to 15 points, 10 is like 20. But for me, the game that still sticks out the most is the St. Joe's game. And obviously I did the game, so I watched it live. So it's why it sticks out to me. But you know why it sticks out to me? It sticks out to me. Drexel to me was an after effect of St. Joe's. They were tight. They were upset. They were down. You lost to a team that you should have beaten. They shouldn't have beaten St. Joe's, and they didn't. And that's why I point out the St. Joe's game. Because St. Joe's said, we're going to run at him. We're going to run at him. We've got the best individual player on the floor in Eric Reynolds. Oh, we're going to put Eric Dixon in ball screen coverage all night defensively. We're going to make him go all over the place. And Eric can handle that to a degree. It's the other defenders who got mixed up, no communication. Who's the alpha? Who's the dog on this team that's going to step up in those moments and say, guys, we got to be better. We got to dig deep. That's what this team needs game in and game out. The Kansas State game, you go to Manhattan, Kansas. Perry misses that shot. He did, 8 times?
Yeah.
And he made the one that he had to make, and credit to him. Tip your cap to the other team. They won the game. The reason why that game gets magnified is because you lost to 3 Philadelphia area teams. But right. Villanova has never, in the last decade, allowed their opponent to control the way a game was played. And to me, that's what they've done a couple of times this year, which is cause for an eyebrow raise. Because when we thought Villanova, we've always thought, if you're going to beat them, you will win on their terms. And I hope that Saturday against UCLA and having a full, 10 days to prepare for this Creighton game, causes this team to go into Creighton and say, this is how we're going to do it. Now, honestly, Villanova's way of playing is the precise formula to be in a game in Omaha.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to beat Creighton, you have to calm their waters. If you let them go spring break on you, have a couple of tequila shots, and start jumping in the pool, and you got country music blasting in Omaha, and they're knocking down shots like you guys on your spring break back in the day, you're done for. Just start up the plane. Let's get the hell out of Omaha, Nebraska. You've got to make this an orchestra outing. You've got to make this a fancy wine and cheese party. Don't make this a drunk country concert.
Yeah.
I love that.
So let's transition a little bit to the Big East, because you just brought up Creighton. This out of conference has been weird for the conference. I feel like we came out this year thinking high hopes. Big East is going to step right up and throw punches with the Big 12. Hasn't exactly happened yet. Do I think the pieces of the puzzle are there for the Big East Conference overall to get there in a year or two? Yes, but it hasn't materialized quickly. Obviously, Villanova lost a couple key games. St. John's has not been, I think, what you thought they could be with Rick Pitino and the roster he assembled. And you kind of watch them play, and you're like, this kind of makes sense, but it's kind of been weird. Butler's been a bright spot. Providence has been really solid. It doesn't like they kind of feel like they're kind of continuing their role, but then DePaul's been really bad. Georgetown's been worse than I maybe thought that they were going to be, and Seton Hall has not been what they need to be either. So and then Xavier's with their injuries, you can't blame them, but it's just not been. It feels like what you once came in thinking, oh, this might be a 7-team conference, a 7-bid conference with 3 teams in the top 3 seeds. You still got those 3 teams in the top 3 seed lines, but all of a sudden, where does the line fall off in terms of making more NCAA tournament teams? I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's 2 ways of looking at this. So here's the deal. At the end of the day, last year the Big East had 5 bids. But 3 of them made the Sweet 16, so we don't even remember that they had 5 bids.
Mm-hmm.
Comes off as 7. So the conference, here's what I look at. So I know people are going to look at it as volume of bids and they want 6 or 7. But when the conference got 7 teams in, 3 of the teams were playing in an 8-9 game. Then there was another team that was playing in a 7-10 game. That's not a great formula either.
No.
Ask the Big Ten how that's worked out for them. It has not. It has not worked out. And I think it will work out better for them this year with Purdue. Because the Purdue stuff, they're going to get redemption. Like this notion that they can't win in March Madness, this is bound to happen. And you can feel it. Like in your veins, sports stories manifest themselves. It feels like that over there. But I digress. To me, the conference's goal right now should be get 5 or 6 teams in. Get 5. Get 5. Now, as we sit and talk here today, you'd have 5.
Yeah,
right.
That's the crazy thing. Like, people are out there saying, like, well, it's a 3-bid league. I've seen some people suggest that. No, Providence would be firmly in today. They blew out Wisconsin. They have no bad losses. And Villanova would be in. I mean, I'm not saying that they're in healthily or that they're in comfortably, but they would be in the NCAA tournament. Butler would probably be just on the outside, but they might be on the inside, but they're probably on the outside. But my point is, like, I didn't think Georgetown was going to be any good. DePaul is awful, but better than Louisville.
Clearly.
Seton Hall has not been good. But, guys, to me, in order to have a combo of 2 things, 1, get great seats, and 2, get your 5 or 6, right now it's a good thing to have a clear bottom.
I was just going to ask you about that, John. Are you worried about the cannibalization that's about to happen in the middle?
I am worried about one team cannibalizing others. Georgetown.
Yeah.
So I am worried about Georgetown beating a couple of teams in DC.
Yeah.
Not on the road. Not on the road. But you know what Georgetown did to TCU?
I mean, they beat them. They didn't, not on paper, but they
More
did.
points.
That's fair. That's fair. But you know, that to me is, and you're right on that. I mean, it's a rule that's going to get changed.
Yeah.
The NCAA is going to change that rule. It was unbelievable that happened. But I'm concerned about a Butler on the bubble going over to Georgetown and losing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm concerned about Villanova having an off day shooting and then losing a game to Georgetown, and you're sitting there saying, "Oh no."
That's exactly what we said today.
Like at least losing at Seton Hall, like their net's going to hover around 100. It's not a demoralizing loss. But Georgetown's net is 231. And it ain't going to change a whole lot. So that's concerning. That is concerning.
And not only to mention that, John, you mentioned Villanova. We play them on February 16th and February 27th. So you're getting a wildly different team than what you have right now. Because, look, say what you want about Ed Cooley, and a lot of people have said a lot of things that they want about Ed Cooley.
Yes.
But by February, this team is going to be better.
Yep.
Yes, and I really, and that's just it, is that if they pick somebody off who's on the bubble, it's going to be categorized as a terrible loss. It's not actually that because the team grew, but metrically it is.
Yeah.
So that's a huge situation in the league right now. I think 5 Big East teams will make it. I think you'll have this firm 3. And then I think two of Providence, Villanova, Butler, St. John's, or I can't believe I'm saying this, or Xavier. And I know what you're all saying. How, John? How the hell do you think Xavier? I only say that because of Sean Miller. And remember a couple years ago when Providence was god-awful early in the season? Lost in Anaheim, lost in MP, and then caught this wave in February, won like 7 of 8. And it was the 2020 season with Juwan Hipkins. They were going to make the tournament, guys.
Mm-hmm.
But they had a dreadful non-conference, like horrendous. That's the one thing the Big East has going for it with the Big 12. The Big 12 and Big East can both say this. Their top is so strong that if you can manage a win over one of those guys, you now have gold that other bubbly teams do not.
Mm-hmm.
5 teams, which in an 11-team league, you want to get 5 or 6. And then you want to sit there and say, can we get 3 to the second weekend? And if you do that, that's a good year. Check the box. If you get somebody in the Final 4, that's a great year.
I mean, John, it's probably not going to happen, but you could make the case that the Big East could get 3 teams to the Elite 8.
Oh, 100%. No question. I mean, right now, I think Connecticut's the most complete team in college basketball.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that. And Arizona is probably the team that gives them the biggest test, but I even believe UConn's got a slight edge over them. And I say that, guys, because Klingon hasn't even been great.
No.
Stefan Castle hasn't even materialized, and it hasn't mattered. We'll see what UConn does this Friday in Seattle against Gonzaga, but I think they'll be favored. I think that they probably find a way to win. They're just lethal from 3. When they hit a 3, it feels like 6. So, you know, they're so together. Marquette's got the best point guard in the country. I mean, Kolik's incredible. And Oso Ighodaro is the latest case of Shaka Smart player development. And Creighton, to me, everybody's kind of disregarded them because they lost to Colorado State. Like,
who's one hell of a team.
Yeah, exactly. It was one hell of a team that, honestly, want my honest take? Creighton disregarded them. And guess what happened? Guess what happened? They paid the price. Sometimes you get your butt beat. That day they did. They're going to be okay.
So, John, I guess who's your team at this point in the season? Looking at it, we're about to jump into conference play. Give me your 5 buys in the Big East tournament.
My 5 buys.
Yes. I'll even give
Okay.
you the benefit of you don't have to rank them in an order.
Yeah. I'll go Marquette, Connecticut, Creighton, Villanova, and
Do
Providence.
you mean it, or are you just on the Villanova podcast?
I don't trust Butler on the road.
Yeah.
I don't trust Xavier enough to give them a bye. St. John's doesn't play any defense.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to take Villanova because they've proven Villanova's going to beat one of those top 3 teams at least one time. They're going to beat one of those.
Yeah.
If I said to you right now, if I said to the 3 of you, take off your Villanova hat. I know that's hard. If I said, yeah, right. If I said to you right now, okay, you get to pick one Big East team to beat one of Creighton, Marquette, UConn on a given night, which team are you going to pick?
UConn.
No. I'm
No.
saying
Of the
I
rest.
know. I'm telling you the one that I want to beat.
yeah.
No,
But
I
I'm
know.
saying which team is most suitable to beat one of those teams
Yeah,
Yeah,
Villanova.
Nova. Or I would say us or maybe Providence.
I would
on
think
a
Providence.
neutral floor.
On a
us.
neutral floor, then
Yeah.
probably us.
Yeah.
So
But
that's what I mean.
Providence got the dunk, right? So, like, Providence is
Yeah.
going to win games. So,
By the way, conference opener next Tuesday. Conference opening night. Marquette at Providence.
it could be right there. Providence could win that game at the AMP.
Yep.
The last 2 they've played have gone to overtime.
Yeah.
At the AMP. So, yeah, look, I would take Villanova because I still trust Justin Moore, Eric Dixon, Tyler Burden, who's coming along. Burden's coming along. Hakeem Hart. I still like as much as they've had some bad days, they seem to play well under pressure, more so than some of these other teams. Look, at the end of the day, could St. John's take 5th?
Sure.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But guys, they have been horrendous defensively. Horrendous.
It's been a
Patino's
mess.
had a lot of commentary on that.
It's interesting that you mentioned because something we've spoke about on the pod has just been, despite the losses, we've responded. Nova has responded well to basically every challenge that's happened, barring St. Joe's where we did just kind of get worked across the board. Like every single game, though, there was when there was a chance to respond, we responded in some way, shape, or form. The Philly games aren't great, obviously how the execution of it happened, but yeah, I completely agree with you.
I mean, Villanova, to me, for Burden to have the week that he just had, that's big. He needed a confidence booster. Guys, that kid works his ass off, and he's a man. I mean, I told this to a couple of Villanova people. If that guy was in a suit and tie walking around Wall Street, I'd be able to confuse him for a 37-year-old father of 2 girls. Tyler Burden looks like that. He's a grown man. He's a grown man. So they've got people that should make them. They have to make the NCAA tournament. This team, to me, is way too talented to not be able to make it. They go to Creighton, then they go to DePaul. They host Xavier. Let's face it. You got to start conference play minimum 2-1.
Mm-hmm.
Minimum. So it's all on the table for this team. I like Brendan Hausen and the kind of burst that he can provide. I think sometimes they press a little bit. Burden only shot 1 for 7 from 3. Like he didn't have it's amazing. He did not shoot the basketball well from the floor, but he went 11 for 14 from the free throw line against UCLA.
Yep.
Which speaks to his ability to get to the free throw line and make things happen. But, I think it's the same type of philosophy, right? They're going to, what do they say about shooting them up and
Shoot 'em up, sleep in the streets.
Sleep in the streets. That's what they're going to keep doing. I would just say, to me, what the next step is can you get someone or two who understand that you can give a ball fake and go to the bucket?
Yep.
Jermaine Samuels was unbelievable at doing that. And do you know how demoralizing it is for a defense? Like, for a defense, you kind of breathe a sigh of relief when they hoist a 3. If it goes in, it goes in. But I think that's the next step for this team.
I mean, there's been so few moments where I feel like we've gotten a team in full rotation, where that pump fake happens, we drive, and then whether it's a layup or then we start kicking it around the perimeter. Like, it's been so few moments of that. So definitely like think that's the next step. And something I called out, and John, I don't even know if you saw this, but like I was looking on Synergy. Like, I mean, we're shooting 28% on open, uncontested jumpers. Like, something has to give back from a shooting standpoint as well.
Yeah, some of these have to drop. I mean, it feels like Villanova's played tight at times. And again, that's kind of where I go to, like, at some point, somebody's got to just take off the mask and say, F this, let's go. You know, I don't mean that in COVID terminology. I mean that in, like, just stop worrying about what people are going to think about you. Stop worrying about who you're trying to be and just play your game. And I do sense at times, like, there's a little bit too much process on the floor. A little bit too much reacting happening for Villanova.
Villanova robots, yeah.
Yeah, be less robotic and go. This system's at its best when you combine the fundamental with the, damn, they're talented.
Yeah. Yep. It feels like one of the things that we talked about at the beginning of the season, John, was like, what are your expectations for this team? And obviously, metric-wise, et cetera, we listed like NCAA tournament, bye in the Big East tournament, whatever. But one of the things that we said was have fun. Last year looked like the least fun Villanova basketball year that any of those players had. None of them had fun at any point last year. It was a root canal the entire time. And it feels like, Bahamas aside, it feels like we have to have fun. And you hope sometimes that it's like something needs to just go right. And like that TJ Bamba like layup where he just found himself in the right place and kind of was able to have a putback, and it almost looked like an alley-oop, but it was just a shot that fell short and he grabbed the rebound and threw up the layup. But like you just kind of like, okay, they need to do something so they could start having fun. And if this team starts having fun, I feel like they'll win a ton of games, but they're just not enjoying themselves out there.
Yeah, that's a big key, Chris. And by the way, Chris, is it your birthday?
It is.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you, Chris.
Thank you,
You're the best. Have a happy birthday. I'm glad that I get to spend part of your birthday with you.
Thanks, John. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. They've got to have more fun. They've got to be less do this, do that to win, and a little bit more organic. I think that's the biggest thing with this Villanova team is Saturday's win over UCLA, still featured some of that, but I thought at certain points their defensive principles in that game were great. They played with aggressiveness. Hakeem Hart came alive, which was huge. And Dixon got on the glass, so did Burden. But, one other thing that I look at with Villanova is their assist count. Their assist count sometimes is really low.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is like, why is the ball sticking? And a lot of people have said, well, it's point guard play. They don't have a great point guard. Well, they do have a lot of multi-positional players.
Yeah.
Who could play different positions, put the ball on the floor, and do different things. I don't want to just hear it's that there's a point guard thing. And Armstrong has had his ups and downs. Those have been well documented. But to me, it's not as simple as let's blame Mark Armstrong for not fully coming into his own. And let's look at that as the sole reason why this team's not as good offensively as they could be. He's not the reason why you're taking 37 threes. Okay? Comfort level. Like, to me, this is where coaching really comes into play and is important. And I expect this team to grow. You have 11 days before you jump into your conference season. Do you know what 11 days signifies to me? Of course, they're going to take their finals. But it signifies to me you can go back to the drawing board, watch film, and work on who? Yourselves. Billy Lang said this, the head coach at St. Joe's. He goes, you know what makes Villanova so hard to prepare for? You know what you're going to get every single time, and there's really nothing you can do about it on a scout team because it's principle-based, and they're disciplined, and they do this, and they dictate the way the game's going to get played. Now, St. Joe's controlled that game and controlled the way it was played. Credit to them. Lang knows a thing or two about Villanova. You got to throw that in as well. But to me, what stood out and what has stood out about this team is that they haven't always taken ownership of that style, of that DNA. They've got to. And that DNA, Jay Wright would say this, The DNA is not just to take threes. The DNA was taking threes if threes were the best shots. The ball needs to move. Players have to take accountability. Villanova is a program that's based on accountability. This team's had some of it. They've shown flashes. This season's gone better than last season. Don't kid yourself.
Yep.
As much as the Philadelphia mess was the Philadelphia mess, you still have accounted for good wins. This is not death. It's not dark days. It's time over the next week for this basketball team to not be the same. Now is not the time for complacency. It's time to grow your identity, whether Justin Moore's on the floor or not. This team's success level comes down to more than more. It comes down to those transfers becoming fully connected and understanding that what this program is about is 5 guys who could make a defense's life a nightmare.
Completely agree.
Couldn't agree more, John. Just it said it perfectly. John, so you said right now you feel like UConn is your most complete team in the country at this moment. Do you have 2 Big East teams in the Final Four? Does Marquette break through? Like, where do you have the Big East in terms of? I know we talked a little bit about you could expect 3 teams in the Elite 8, but give me a full Final Four. I'm just curious where the Big East kind of lays out in that.
Yeah, my full Final Four right now. Arizona's in there. It's unfair to not put them in there. Caleb Love's embracing his role. Kylan Boswell's fantastic. Keyshawn Johnson's gone to a Final Four at San Diego State. Elite pickup. So Arizona's in there. All right, they would be 1. Okay. Connecticut would be 2. I think they can get back there. I think they're good enough to get back there. So they're in that 2 slot for me. Now is when you start to get a little bit tricky because I think Purdue can make a deep run. I'm not taking them to make the Final Four. Guys, I think Rick Barnes and Tennessee can make it.
You think this is the year? This is the year that they do it?
This could be the year. You know why? They're better offensively than they've been.
Connect's fantastic.
They have 3 losses. Remember Zakai Ziegler coming back from the injury?
Yep.
But I still really like them. And I think they're going to be better for the early struggles. I was impressed with them against Illinois. And to me, Dalton Connect reminds me of Doug McDermott.
Yeah.
He's got some of that in his game.
And I love that, like, Vescovi hasn't even played that well this season. Like, he still hasn't really had his moments yet. So, I mean, it's coming. I hope so. I love Tennessee.
And then I'm going to go with Baylor.
Wow. Okay.
With Marquette in the Elite 8.
Okay.
Marquette plays for a regional final against Baylor. There it is. Baylor gets a slight edge, but I would not be surprised at all if Marquette beat them. But I really like this Baylor team. Ray J. Dennis, Jacoby Walter. Offensively, they're really, really tough. Jalen Bridges has only gotten better. Scott Drew's got a group that's connected, playing at an extremely high level. So UConn, Arizona, Tennessee, Baylor. Guys, I would not totally kill off Duke yet. I think their early struggles are really good for them because you know what's happened to them? They've fallen off the map. Michigan State's fallen off the map for a good reason.
Yeah,
Duke's fallen off the map because why? They lost at home to Arizona, who's number 1 in the country, and they lost at Arkansas. Nobody was winning at Arkansas that night. Nobody. Yeah. And they lost to Georgia Tech, which was a tough loss. That's a game that you shouldn't lose. But I'm not all the way out on Duke yet. They play Hofstra tomorrow night. Speedy Claxton's team is tough. They're better than people think. Tyler Thomas is a bucket, but I'm not all the way out on them just because I think we've become conditioned to sometimes counting some of those teams out if they struggle early. That could end up being a good thing for them. But Arizona, Connecticut, Baylor, and I've gone with him before and I've been snake bitten. But I think this Tennessee team might be different this time.
Okay. Fool me once, fool me twice, fool me thrice. Hopefully not again.
I mean, the other thing, too, with Duke is that, look, they're going to play Hofstra and Queens, which aren't great game. Hofstra's pretty solid, but Baylor obviously is a really tough opponent. But then the ACC, I mean, UNC's been great, but other than UNC
and Clemson.
And Clemson. Yeah, right.
PJ Hall is an absolute
Clemson
monster.
could get there. I know people think that's nuts. Clemson could make the Final Four. I know people think that's crazy. If you have, please, if you're a junkie on this call or a junkie watching, watch Clemson play.
Yeah.
I put a little future
T.O.'s in your head a lot, though. I don't know.
They
put a little future down for them.
They remind me quite a bit of Seton Hall in 2019-20. They are a very similar team to that team because they have elite big men. They rebound, and Joe Girard unlocks them from three. And Powell did that for those Seton Hall teams. That is Clemson plays a very disciplined nature. T.O. is in my ear, but I'm telling you that team is the real deal.
Yeah, not crazy to think that Duke can run out 15 wins in conference and end up with a very high seed and put themselves in position to make a run.
And look, Kentucky should make a run. I mean, if you watch Kentucky play, they have all the talent in the world. Do I trust them? No. But should they be able to make a run? Yes. Robert Dillingham and Reed Shepherd have been two of the 5 best freshmen in the country. And, they've been two of the best 15 players in the country.
Reed Shepherd's efficiency is outstanding. And his his defensive instincts are, at his size, are baffling, frankly, what he's able to do defensively. I had a question, just a Big East question. What player has stood out to you the most in the Big East that you surprised you the most? Let's say, we all expect what Kolek's done. We've expected to see what we've seen at UConn. We've expected to see, Trey Alexander be who he is. But what's player surprised you the most?
Well, Pierre Brooks and Jameel Telford at Butler.
I was hoping you would say Telford.
So Telford, I'm not shocked because I had him a couple times doing the CAA games on CBS Sports Network last year. And Telford was really good. They would just feed him the ball at the elbow, and he scored. He's a junkyard dog type of player. So, Willie, it's a great question. I think he's a guy, he plays bully ball.
Yeah.
And they could set him up on an island. One thing about Thad Matta is really good at setting up his best offensive players for shots that go in. Last year, Butler was soft, and they weren't very talented. And you could blame Thad. I don't think Thad properly put his roster together for what things called for. Do I think this Butler team is great? I don't think they're great, but I think they're good enough to be in the position. And why? Because Telford and Brooks are dynamic wings, and now Posh Alexander has shooters.
Right.
Never had that.
What was Mike Anderson doing last year?
No, there's a lot of questions.
For one, he was off to a better start than Pitino, but
hold on. David Jones is killing it for Memphis.
Yep.
What were you doing personnel-wise? What was your offense? Pitino, here's the thing. The defense has been dreadful, but at least St. John's runs offense.
Yeah. Who's AJ Storr, the other one? They've all transferred and been better.
Yes.
Look, Butler, but especially when you consider Hinkle and you consider what Butler can do offensively, they're going to throw 90 on a couple teams this year in conference play and run out with a few wins. So
yes,
I'm not surprised. Willie took away UConn as a whole team, but Tristan Newton's been absolutely electric.
UConn.
Look, they've been really good. And by the way, I was right. UConn.
They've been great. I thought they'd be really good. I don't think anybody could have seen them being great this early. They are a really, really special group. Cam Spencer was the perfect portal ad. Solo ball keeps getting better. Alex Caravan's beyond his years. I thought they could be great because of Caravan coming back. And I love the kid. I think he's a winner. And Tristan Newton. At the end of the day, Danny said before the season, I said, what's the key this year? He goes, the same as last year, Tristan Newton.
Yeah.
So I think the thing about UConn is they're so good with, as we said earlier, Klingon and these other guys aren't peaking yet. And just there was no drop off at all. So that was, I think, what surprised me about UConn. Like, you expect them to not really have that hangover. Hurley's a good coach. Say whatever you want about him, but he's a good coach, and he's not going to let them have that hangover. But just how well they played without these guys really reaching their peak yet is what's worrisome for, at least for other Big East teams come January, February, March.
Yes, but I still believe. See, it's a long season. It's a long season. So I'm with you, Trevor. They could honestly go the whole regular season and only lose 3 games or 4 games, or maybe 5 tops. But I do get a gut feeling this league is so tough. It's like, you could look at teams right now and you could sit there and say, that's a win. It's the Big East, man. Nothing is easy. Nothing. Because of the crowds and how tough these teams play and how well coached they are. Looking at UConn early conference schedule. At Seton Hall, St. John's, DePaul. They should win all those games. They're at Butler January 5th. They're at Xavier January 10th. I would say it'll be a surprise in the moment. I could see them losing to one of those 2 teams just by virtue of desperation. They're at home. They hit a couple more shots on that night. And, Butler got disrespected by UConn last year. They got punked. They're going to want revenge. They'll have a wild crowd there. They have a stretch, UConn, where they go Creighton at Nova. Xavier, who Sean Miller seems to have a nice formula. He swept Dan Hurley last year with more talent, but still. Providence at St. John's. Like, that's a tough stretch. And then, guys, it's interesting. UConn could go into the Big East tournament not soaring and flying, because look at their late conference schedule.
Their late conference schedule is insane. I'm looking at it now.
We've been there too in the J. Wright team in the past.
Right. Home Marquette at Creighton, Villanova, Seton Hall, but then at Marquette, at Providence. I'm telling you what, the late conference slate for UConn, if they're chasing that regular season, they're going to have to earn it.
Yep.
Marquette fans will be the first ones to tell you, John, it's harder to win the Big East than it is to win a national championship. So,
well, for Marquette, you got to get to the second weekend this year.
Yeah.
All right, John, final question here. Is Georgetown's wavering so far this year in the early conference season, has that taken any air at all out of the sails when they come to the AMP in late January?
No, not at all.
I feel like it's only aided it.
Yeah,
is that going to be a game that like the whole like Val's there, like you're?
No, I don't think that the commissioner of the Big East will be in the house for that one, because I don't think
she doesn't want to get hit with a beer can.
You don't want to be associated with that. Seriously. Now, I'll be on site. I'll cover the game. A lot of people are like, "Oh, what if somebody comes up and yells at you or throws?" Guys, you know me, Chris. You've known me for a long time. I'm not like that. I'm a human. I'd like to think that helps. I'd like to think that helps my relatability. I am who I am. I'm a Cleveland Browns fan. I'm a human who covers college basketball. If a kid comes up to me and starts screaming at me, I will gladly speak with them. I'm not like that. I'm not a combative person. I'm a positive person. The thing is, Ed Cooley made a move from Providence to Georgetown. And Providence College is in a much better place than Georgetown University right now as a program. Ed bet on Georgetown, getting them elevated, and what that would mean to follow in the footsteps of John Thompson. Okay? As a result, I'm covering that story. What do I believe? There's no chance in hell I would have left Providence College.
No.
Nobody's ever asked me, what would you have done?
Yeah.
Okay? I recognize Providence has one of the best fan bases in America. Like top 4, 5 in the country. You could say one, and I'd be with you. I just don't put number 1 because another fan base will get pissed off at me. But they're right up there. They have great resources. They have NIL. They have everything you would want. So, but that's what he decided to do. And Providence fans will make him aware of that decision on January 27th. But when I get tweets at night saying, how upset are you at Georgetown's results? Let me be very clear. I lose no sleep on results of games. I go to bed at night. Marquette won the Big East tournament last year. For years, Marquette fans were like, you don't cover us fairly. Well, then you won the Big East. We were covering you all day, all night. You know why? You won it. You won it. Congratulations. So that's just how it is. You know, that January 27th game is going to be absolutely bonkers. It will be a 3-ring circus.
I know people of so many other fan bases who have snuck in tickets. They've only been able to buy one because that's all that's available. And it should be quite the night.
Nuts.
All right, John. I really appreciate it. Really, as always, like you've always came on this podcast the last 4, 5, 6 years running, and it's been just a blessing and honor to have you on. And it's awesome to watch your career and your personal life. And we should have started with this, but congratulations on the recent nuptials and honeymoon and all of that comes with that. So congratulations on that. It's awesome to watch you grow as a person, as a professional. So congratulations, John.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you so much for having me on, and this was a pleasure. Anytime. Thanks.
Thanks, John.
Happy holidays, Nova Nation.
Thank you very much. All right. We'll be back are we doing next week? I think we said that we would do next. Really can't.
To be decided.
Yeah, TBD.
We'll
something crazy happens maybe, but we got to talk about it.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. So we'll be with you. Thanks everybody for listening, and as always, let's go Nova.